Don't bother me. You wanna see me hang around? Don't bother me. You wanna know if I'll get down? Don't bother me. I can't take your kind of life no more. Oh, can't you see? So understand the simple truth. Don't bother me. You love to hear me say I give up you. You wanna hear me say I'll break up you. You can't believe that I could love you. You wanna know if I could hurt ya. I've got no time for compromise. Don't bother me. You're all the same, just a bunch of lies. Oh, can't you see? That pretty soon it won't be no more of you or me. So understand the simple truth. Don't bother me. You love to hear me say I give up you. You wanna hear me say I break up you. You can't believe that I can love you. You wanna know if I could hurt ya.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes. All right. How's it look behind me? That is my new tapestry. I'm trying to do the tapestries. I'm thinking of the Nazis and Harrison Ford's German Nazi accent in the Last Crusade with the tapestries. But anyway, I always loved his impression in that movie of the Nazi when he's hiding out in the spy castle. Anywho's, I think we got Fergie. Who's here? Yeah, Don Ferguson. What's up, Don? You've been cool. You've been cool. You are standard moderator. All right. Let me see. Shelby. Boink. Where's my my mouse isn't cooperating with the corner of the screen. Thank you. Just trying to collapse the screen a little bit because I don't need that much of it. There we go. Hey, what's up, Parsons? Good. All right, it is Zerilath here. We are on part 5. I think I haven't even looked. I have to double check the playlist because I think I screwed up. I don't know if I screwed up the numbers with the last stream. It takes an obnoxious amount of time to get home from work. It's kind of a half an hour commute, but you typically have to make all these little pit stops sometimes, and so a half an hour commute turns into a 1 hour commute because of errands. So it's productive, but then you get home, and it's just like, what do I do, right? What do I have time for? Because I have to think in terms of, all right, I need to make time now or after something more immediate for meditation. And then I have to think about what I'm going to do when I'm going to do my evening ritual because I'm going to wait a little while to do that because I space it out throughout the course of my conscious day. Yeah. So, here we are. We left off, as I recall, on the 4th rule. Yes, because I remember reading all of this. Okay. So we're going to kick things off on the 4th rule of radicals. I think there's a handful more rules, and then it goes into what you do with the rules. All right. The 4th rule of the ethics of means and ends is that judgment must be made in the context of the times in which the action occurred, and not from any other chronological vantage point. The Boston Massacre is a case in point. The British atrocities alone, however, were not sufficient to convince the people that murder had been done on the night of March 5th. There was a deathbed confession of Patrick Carr that the townspeople had been the aggressors and that the soldiers had fired in self-defense. This unlooked for recantation from one of the martyrs who was dying in the odor of sanctity with which Sam Adams had vested them, sent a wave of alarm to the Patriot ranks. But Adams blasted Carr's testimony in the eyes of all pious New Englanders by pointing out that he was an Irish papist who had probably died in the confession of the Roman Catholic Church. After Sam Adams had finished with Patrick Carr, even Tories did not dare to quote him to prove Bostonians were responsible for the massacre. To the British, this was a false rotten use of bigotry and an immoral means characteristic of the revolutionaries of the Sons of Liberty. Oh, wait, did they use the word bigotry? Okay, wait a minute. To the British, okay, hold on a second. Hold on a sec. Okay, I'm gonna ask Google this. Ask Google. Not Google AI will give me an answer, I suppose, because it's gonna be there whether I want it or not. Did the British literally call, I'm saying literally because it's important, Sam Adams a bigot after the, oh my god, after the, or I'm sorry, Adams a bigot, sorry, because, big it, my keyboard's got this funky delay. It is a Bluetooth keyboard, and it sometimes glitches the fuck out, and then the button I press once, it will press it 10 times in succession. It ends up having a fucking lagging problem. Let me make sure that my Bluetooth is off on my phone, so can't even remotely be fucking tracking it. Bigot, thank you. Okay, did the British literally call Sam Adams a bigot? Because of the Boston massacre. There we go. Let's see what we got. Okay, so Google AI says that there isn't evidence, but they did condemn and denounce his role in inflaming colonial opposition, spreading propaganda. The term bigot was likely not part of the political insult of the period in the same way it is used today. That's what I figured. However, British officials did use other strong language to describe Adams, and later accounts criticized his actions. All right, so AI understands the question by the merit of what it's just told me. Can it give me a close equivalent? However, the British did use... Okay, so key facts about Adams' relationship with the British and the Boston Massacre. A Machiavelli of chaos. Thomas Hutchinson, the British governor of Massachusetts and Adams' rival, referred to Adams as a Machiavelli of chaos. He accused Adams of twisting the truth and exploiting events to stir up mob violence. Okay, all right. So that's just politics. Most dangerous man. Hey, okay, fueling animosity, inciting propaganda, exclusion from pardon all rebels. All right, but it's not quite giving the bigot. Okay, while the term bigot was conduct later, historians have criticized Adams for his intolerant attitudes. Okay, so he had intolerant attitudes. Okay, so he stuck to. That just means he stuck to his convictions, right? Now, the bigotry aspect of it is just, did you win or lose the argument? Right? And that's the only metric here. And guys, that's what you got to deal with if you want a civilized republic. Is that whether he's right or wrong, he won the fucking argument, and it's on you for not being wiser, wittier, smarter. Right? And shame on you, but then again, shame on us for being fooled if you used deceit and coercion and confusion and so on and so forth. You can say something that you're right about and have nothing to back it up. And people do this all the time. They're right about something, but they're wrong about how they're right. And it's infuriating because that kills everything and allows a tremendous amount of people to deny it. So anyway, okay, I think we've got a very qualifying answer. I'm pretty good with that answer as just an immediate answer. Hey, what's up, Peaceful Penguin? Shame on me. Yes. Shame on you, Peaceful Penguin. You need to become a general of the Arctic. But anyway, let's get back at it. Let me see. I still got the book on screen, right? Good. All right. Whoops. All right. Immense the Sons of Liberty. To the Sons of Liberty and to the Patriots, Sam Adams' action was brilliant strategy and a God-sent lifesaver. Today we may look back and regard Adams' actions in the same light as the British did, but remember that we are not today involved in a revolution against the British Empire. Ethical standards must be elastic to stretch with the times. All right. Yeah, it stretched with the times. In politics, the ethics of means and ends can be understood by the rules suggested here. History is made up of little else but examples such as our position on freedom of the high seas in 1812 and 1917, contrasted with our 1962 blockade of Cuba, or our alliance in 1942 with the Soviet Union against Germany, Japan, and Italy, and the reversal in alignments in less than a decade. Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus, his defiance of a directive of the Chief Justice of the United States, and the illegal use of military commission to try civilians were by the same man who had said in Springfield 15 years earlier, "Let me not be understood as saying that there are no bad laws or that grievances may not arise for the redress of which no legal provisions have been made. I mean to say no such thing. But I do mean to say that although bad laws, if they exist, should be repealed, still, while they continue in force, for the sake of example, they should be religiously observed." It's very... I love the synchronicity. Let's give the Norns their due. We just had this whole thing with the Antifa assaulting ICE, and they just wrapped up a live stream from the White House. They had a round table tonight. The round tables are the only fucking thing that, like those round table, typically when I hear those round tables, those kinds of round tables, the equation is changing. The good and the bad in the fucking universe. When he does a round table, Donald Trump has that's like the good guys have broken through. Right? That's like Team Light 1, on that angle. It's just an angle, right? There could be dark times ahead in other ways. But there are light times ahead also, right? We need to be vigilant, fair justice watchdogs on this demiurge, this archon, that stirs through the center of the nation, because we don't know how to slay it. Many of us know how to have excellent protection from it, but we do not know how to slay it. And let's not kid ourselves, right? And a lot of people, they just want to destroy themselves because it's the ultimate dragon. And hey, listen, I'm willing to fight that fight, but there's no need for that fight. And I think that we religiously want to feed it blood, and it doesn't have to have blood. But we don't understand the cult shaping it, and so we don't shape it in a manner which is in accord a true relationship with the people. And I'm not going to be Mr. Altruistic in the sense that there won't be somebody who wants to come for blood or not. I don't know. You can be fine if you whatever. Like it's a matter of Dasein for me at this point. Either it exists in reality for me or it doesn't. Because you know what? That's why I always say, well, you know, it would have been nice if I was invited to January 6th. I always say that. This is like, I just would have liked to have been invited, but I wasn't invited. And you know what? It's the best goddamn thing that never happened to me, right? Because it just, you literally would no longer be oppressed if you just stopped making it your Dasein. Now, that's crazy talk if you are riddled with problems. I'm talking about people that are generally not riddled with problems and are already working on themselves. It becomes way easier to have this disposition. Haven't you noticed that the monster only eats the naive? Haven't you noticed that? Haven't you noticed that everybody who's got the wisdom, it doesn't touch at all? Look at how far many of us have gotten. Why did Charlie Kirk get shot talking about the Jews in public, and other people that talk about the Jews but also go out in public like that, they don't get shot? Right? It's because you were never a fool about the whole fucking matter. You were building from outside their world. And there was a large extension of protection bestowed upon you for your wisdom, as you made a different kind of difference, one that grows under the radar, something that would be mistaken for another blade of grass until it was too late. And then nobody was protesting it anyway because none of their fears manifested. And then somebody said, oh, it's a pagan's fault. And then everybody said, what the fuck you on about? Right? That's my point, right? That's my point. Something untouchable can be yours. And the most egregious of things of this concern is these government kidnapping operations that may be proper, lawful, on-the-book operations or actual human abductions. Right? Improper ones, right? Because at the end of the day, this is the pretense of you were breaking and entering, or you committed fraud, or you simply failed to requalify your status as somebody who hasn't made the steps to citizenship yet, especially if you're not even in process. Right? It's just like, oh my God, they just want to be here to work. Yeah, we know they want to just be here to work. They don't have a dream of being an American. They have a dream of exploiting the economy for maybe 10, 20 years. Great, thanks for the help and the work or whatever. And then they're going to fucking go home. That's what it is for most of them. The non-criminal ones who had to, by proxy, empower the criminals who got them here and taught them how to lay low. Right? So, naturally, it makes you look like a fucking Nazi, but they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about when they said that. because most of the bad press about who the Nazis were didn't come till later in the war from reports that we took at face value from Stalin. And you're going to have to fucking look at that a long, long, long ass time. And that is not to say Mr. Mustache was the good guy. He was set up to fail, and he was set up to do somebody else's dirty work. And you wouldn't believe whose dirty work it actually fucking was. Well, you guys would believe, but let's imagine I'm talking to a normie right now. Because normies may want to check this out, because I'm reading a book for leftist normies. Anyway. Okay. This was also the same Lincoln who, a few years prior to his signing the Emancipation Proclamation, stated in his first inaugural address, I do but quote from one of these speeches when I declared that I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. Yes, that is correct. Okay, we all know that Saul's telling the truth there. So, I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. Well, the law goes out the window in a war, especially if you've chosen to secede from the Union despite rule of law, right? Now law don't apply no more, right? But that's implying that it is against the law to secede, which the Declaration of Independence does not say that. It's a non-permanent bind. You can have a committee agreement and say, nah, no thanks, no union for me. Right? So, of course, Lincoln had to change that interpretation of the contract because we at that point had grown to a certain point where it's just like, think about the time they're living in. They're in a post-Napoleonic war time. Think about what they're seeing emerge in the rest of the world as their independent country is moving along at a healthy clip with it. Right? And this is part and parcel. This is a more important argument of why the Democrat Party and the South was wrong in the Civil War. All right? Being conservative-minded doesn't mean you completely flip everything on its fucking script. But if they do the double lie for each side that they always do now, as they have back then, which I just proved looking into the John Adams situation. You get it? Do you get it? All right? So each side was wrong and right, but each side was dealing with being obsessed with making an absolute of their experiment. And the truth is that we're in the experiment. Like, the status quo did not win in the Civil War, right? There was basically a civil revolution with the new kind of politics, changing the way America was going to decide to see itself, because they needed. They were taking a bold stand for the idea of, listen, every country in the world that is not doing slavery is doing way better than we are. Because being responsible for your entire employment's fucking life, right? You care every day, like they're just your employees that are this impersonal fucking family to you. Like you're dealing with madness with that, and it was bad on them for not making a process on both sides. The process of getting you into the situation where you want to be, especially because, like, look, man, a lot of blacks doing the Christianized version of their pagan ways. Remember, most of these goddamn fucking blacks, they became Christian as part of their slavery and grooming indoctrination. That's fascism. They were grooming them to be slaves. That wasn't the way they were meant to be, right? You're doing that because there's no wrong going on. There's debt slaves. We don't do that anymore, but there's such thing as debt slave. There's which can mean criminal debts. There's war slaves as well. And then criminal slaves, right? Sometimes slavery is just a just punishment. Thor had 2 Jotun replace his 2 goats when his goats were crippled from one of Loki's tricks. The father, who allowed himself to be tricked by Loki, had to pay the price. And so the price was, your kids are now my slave. And so these 2 Jotun now take up role with him. And it makes me wonder about the astrotheology of that. Is it an association with Gemini? Is that, I feel like it's a Gemini thing. But the Gemini is supposed to be the eyes of Thiazi. And this isn't a Thiazi story. But it may not mean Thiazi, depending on the mythos. Right? Maybe the Vanir tell the Thiazi story. That was part of the Vanir side of things. Right? Let's see. Like the Vanir talking about the Aesir, which they may not really have done. There seems to be very little evidence that in the earliest times there wasn't a cohesive myth like that. But then again, how do we know this is... are we certain that this is the super oldest of myths? Because remember, some of the Eddas mention things like, quote, Christian women. Like, there are certain things that are just part of it now, that are existent things. This was also the same Lincoln who, a few years prior to his signing the Emancipation Proclamation, stated in his first inaugural address, "I do but quote from one of those speeches when I declare that I have no purpose directly or in..." Okay, I'm sorry, I already read that. Inclination, those who nominated and elected me did so with full knowledge that I made this and many similar declarations and have never recanted them. Alright, so there with his Emancipation Proclamation, right? And you could say there's some duplicity involved there, right? Because the end of the war, kind of forced his hand, because, that may have been his thing, but by that point, the legislature had something to say about it. At that point, an amendment to the Constitution had been a conversation for a hot minute, right? The tide was over, right? Those who would be critical of the ethics of Lincoln's reversal of positions have a strangely unreal picture of a static, unchanging world where one remains firm and committed to certain so-called principles or positions. In the politics of human life, consistency is not a virtue. To be consistent means, according to the Oxford Universal Dictionary, standing still or not moving. Men must change with the times or die. All right, and John Adams was the bigot. Remember, he was Mr. Stubborn, but there was something else that was going on, right? Because there was no consent to the times that were changing in Britain. Britain was imposing all this new bullshit. Britain was changing the things and flipping the script, right? Lincoln was trying to keep a status quo, but the country was going in a certain direction. Him saying that was an appeasement, right? And it's not Lincoln's fault. Because you're looking at what a whole fucking country's doing. Right? And you're going to sometimes perhaps have a hard time finding an administration that can execute an answer that is the right thing to do. And that's what's terrifying. Right? And, that's what makes the anarchy argument interesting. Because, you're trying to be the best guy and be Mr. No Government. What if as the best guy you need to be in the government? Maybe, because you're the effective protector. Because you were wise enough to somehow get in there, not get shot, and you didn't take any of their secrets. And that's kind of impossible to do. It would seem like you hit a certain level, they're just like, no way, kill him. Right? He ascended in the time that he did because he was perfect for the plots that they had. And he was there to shepherd people in a certain way, especially as they knew that eventually everybody was going to know what was up. And it's crazy to think how the world changed itself just to resist being exposed. Right? And so there's been concession after concession to what the people want out of survival another day. Right? And we just keep waking up every day and being like, have they done the thing that destroys the freedom yet? No? Oh, thank God, I'm going back to sleep. Right? And that's what we wake up every day, and that's what we do on our podcast. Today's the day that we are closer to slavery. It's horrible. Right? Because it's our responsibility to have the passion, the emotional charge behind it, because it just seems like there's no fucking empathy. Right? There's no empathy. It's just like you're not allowed to have empathy unless you're in a state of victimhood, right? When I talked to my local News 12, I gave them nothing worth filming because I did not give them somebody who was going to accept living under the terror that people from a violent and poor, exploited community of bitter, impoverished people had no fear in coming to my neighborhood to commit Grand Theft Auto. Could have been my car. And my posture was to broadcast a reminder of I being one who believes in self-defense. I can't stand... The worst advice I ever got as a child was, don't do anything, tell the teacher. It was the worst advice of my fucking life. And so, it's not so much that I'm anti-cop, it's just that you defend yourself, and then the cops consider you the problem. Right? It's understandable that there's ideas of instigation, interrogation, your own kind of gaslighting. A lot of people want to play those kinds of games too, which is why there's different kinds of charges for different kinds of offenses, right? And some of them are not a big deal, but at the end of the day, if it is revealed that this wasn't just the way you conducted yourself in one moment, because you were acting accordingly. It's like, no, it's just like you escalated on a personal level over something that was, being disagreed upon or whatever, right? We get this. We get this. This is an overwhelming thing, and, it's fine. We can completely restructure society where nobody lives in a way where cities can even exist, and thus there be no kind of place where everybody would be capable of having such a population density they could just mob up on you and they can fucking threaten politicians to violate your rights because there's too many of them. So you just get away from that system, right? We could be saying it's the end of cities because the dense populations make too many people just distracted by each other. There's too many lit parties going on. Not enough getting sleep, getting sober, getting to work. Right? Oh, this fascist doesn't want us to have parties anymore. Right? That's it. That's all they got. They're just fucking children. That's their big fucking thing. It's just like, playtime is over, you're a fascist. This is the argument of a 2-year-old. It is... I'm sick and tired of living with man-children in the terrible twos. Absolutely sick of it. It's fine if your ideals are much more mature than you're behaving, but you have a responsibility to represent your fucking position. Because you either want to do it a service or you do not. The change in Jefferson's orientation when he became president is pertinent. In fact, hold on, I'll read that again later. I'm having too much fun and I don't want to take a break. I should take a break. I want to breathe and drink and things. Alright, anti-flag.
Brutality!
kick-ass rock and roll. Wow, man, kick-ass rock and roll. I need a bong, man. I need some drugs. Wow, this rock and roll bullshit is good. Oh, man, I'm getting fucked up. Wow, man, wow. Wow, pass the bong. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. My bad. My bad. Ah! Ah, I had a feeling. I had a feeling for a second that something was wrong. So many buttons. Thank you for being there. That could have been. Whoo! Thank God. Thank God I have chat tonight. Couple of times I do this show, I get almost no chat activity. Thank you, Susie Q. Lifesaver. Anyway, yeah. So I gotta listen to more punk music. I'm such a metalhead that like I haven't given myself time to absorb it. Also, I have conflicting feelings about um, you know loving stuff in a culture that can be a bit it's just you get taken wrong. I'm a person that gets taken wrong. It's just like I don't make sense to you until you get to know me because I'm just not interested. I'm just really not interested into falling into any of the things because that's the only way I can be as opinionated as I can be. I have to literally be clean of titles like that. Like, I painfully try to contextualize myself if I try and say conservative in reference to myself. Right? Because life makes way more sense if you can have no attachments to any of that in an identificational way. And you can give yourself time to be at rest to balance it out. I think, because what I find hysterical and makes me almost want to not fucking do any revolution at all is listening to that socialist I mentioned in my car stream, if you caught it, because I haven't made it public, about the guy who said America was the best example of communism. We're the closest thing to communism. Well. Well, holy shit, considering how horribly it's gone with communist revolutions in America, then let's just not have a revolution, and let's just work within the system. I'm just following his logic. The trivium process. I don't think he has the independent mind to conceive of it. He's just an unremarkable smartass who doesn't know the power that he could have if he had a mind to say anything on any platform anywhere. I zeroed in on medical marijuana for Connecticut. In 2010, I acquired my target, and I've been rewarded with the best fucking weed laws I could fucking ask for in my personal life. It's working beautifully. It's so fucking libertarian it hurts my feelings. It's a good fucking spot to be. And I'm sorry, policing has changed. It has gotten the message. It has strived for good faith. The perception of how this is going down in sanctuary cities is terrible because it is being mispronounced. We can be upset that it's happening at all, but without accuracy of what we are seeing, not even the anarchist is going to be heard and respected. So steps have to be fucking taken. Because that's just the goddamn cards we've been dealt with in the time we're dealt with. You can't fight for the future in that future. You don't have it yet. You don't have the steps for it. You just have personally taking care of yourself. And then anarchy just becomes a way in your mind to just remember that you're on your fucking own. And it's just condemning yourself to the hermit card. And eventually that the wheel of fortune is going to spin you upside down. And you will have been in the hermit card so long you hadn't realized you're reverse hermit. 2020 was like telling me, Steve, you've been in reverse hermit. Get the fuck out of your shell. Because everybody was getting locked in and I wanted to be out. Motherfucker, I am an Andromedan star fucking seed. Fuck you, I know this in my soul. I wanted to be fucking out like no motherfucker's fucking business. But not in an escape the Matrix way. It was never that, funny enough. I think I was more romantically inclined to the myth, to the Sigurd. I shall slay Fafnir and become the dragon and learn the language of birds. The change in Jefferson's orientation when he became president is pertinent to this point. Jefferson had incessantly attacked President Washington for using national self-interest as the point of departure for all decisions. He castigated the president as narrow and selfish and argued that decisions should be made on a world interest basis to encourage the spread of the ideas of the American Revolution. That's interesting. The change in Jefferson's when he became president is pertinent to this. Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson? Is that where we're at? Because we're talking about Lincoln a second ago. Wait. Are we talking about the Jefferson when Lincoln was assassinated? Are we talking about? That's not Thomas Jefferson. It's not Andrew Jackson. Ugh. You bastards. Who was the president after Abraham Lincoln? Andrew Johnson. So what the fuck is he talking about Jefferson for? So I guess he's just jumping back to the American Revolution like, okay, fine. The change in Jefferson's orientation when he became president is pertinent to this point. Jefferson had incessantly attacked President Washington for using national self-interest. Maybe I'm just high. It's okay. You know I'm a fucking genius anyway. As the point of departure for all decisions. He castigated the president as narrow and selfish and argued that decisions should be made on a world interest basis to encourage the spread of ideas of the American Revolution. Interesting. So he was into the American ideal projected into the world. Okay. And I would agree, based on the civil yet unpussy manner in which we forged this nation. But can you blame fucking Washington? He, 8 years, and you're gauging the waters. You're still gauging the waters. You want to make sure that you're not fucking I don't know if you don't want to boast about yourself or whatever in the inception of your nation. I mean, this is the craziest of hypotheticals. I mean, Washington is living in, with no precedent. Anyway, so if there's an underlying argument, it would be, merely that he's trying to make sure that colonial loyalists that may still be left amongst the elite class felt safe being Americans. And I think that's why George Washington had to do it that way. I think that's what the political, and this is not like the elites know their thing. They're not worried about anything, but there are the guys that are just under the elites, right? Because they're basically bloodlines that don't have the control. And I think that's what the Trump bloodline is. It's one of these bloodlines that existed in America, but never was able to bypass the hegemony. Right? And so something happened. Trump was able to get the House of Orange into the Society of Cincinnati, and that kinship is what makes a person legally protected to run for president. The Society of Cincinnati is the gatekeeper of that. I would recommend Operation GCD from the Occult Rejects Network. His podcast gets into that. He talks about how Erica and Charlie were associated or in Society of Cincinnati, meaning that they would be allowed to secretly, legally be able to run for president, right? To not, be a farce, to be a distraction, right? I'm pretty sure they'll let you run for president out if you're not in the Society of Cincinnati. I think, but you're not going to win. I don't even think that they'd let you win a primary. But I'm not sure about that. I would check in with GCD. Anyway, and forgive me, I'm forgetting homie's name, but shout out. Okay. However, from the first moment when Jefferson assumed the presidency of the United States, his every decision was dictated by national self-interest. This story from another century has parallels in our century and every other. Okay, yes. Pause. There we go. It took me a while to get started on reading during this break, so I'm going to stretch it out a couple more minutes before I hit the next break. I might want to go to maybe 8:30. We'll see. I think I can get through all of the rules. I might be able to get through all the rules. I'm going to try and get through all the rules, and that's when we're going to quit. We're on page 50. The fifth rule of the ethics of means and ends is that concern with ethics increases with the number of means available and vice versa. To the man of action, the first criterion in determining which means to employ is to assess what means are available. Reviewing and selecting available means is done on a straight utilitarian basis. Will it work? Moral questions may enter when one chooses among equally effective alternative means. But if one lacks the luxury of a choice and is possessed of only one means, then the ethical question will never arise. Automatically, the lone means becomes endowed with a moral spirit. Its defense lies in the cry, "What else could I do?" Inversely, the secure position in which one possesses the choice of a number of effective and powerful means is always accompanied by the ethical concern and serenity of conscience, so admirably described by Mark Twain as the calm confidence of a Christian holding 4 aces. I like that quote. That's kind of cool. Let me get that again. But lacks, okay, so means ends that concern with ethics increase with the number of means available. And okay, the means and ends is that concerns with ethics increases with the number of means available, and the number of means available. You mean supply? Okay, that we call that supply, sir. Are you supplied for your means? And okay, so the fifth rule of ethics of means and ends is that concerns with ethics increases with the number of means available and vice versa. Right. So, yeah. It's called supply and demand. It's called supply and demand. Right? So, man, I really want to get a free lunch. What is the most ethical way to get a free lunch? Shall I just walk right in to the Subway counter and build the sub myself and tell the guy at the counter, I'm just making this for myself today. It is my right as per my political ideology. I have found everything in accord with my political ideology. I believe I can legally take this. This is not stealing. This is already mine. Do I do it that way? Or do I do the extreme opposite? And I throw a Molotov cocktail in a window of a grocery store. I let the place burn down away from the deli department, and I just steal this sandwich that was sitting prepared, just nice and fast. Why would I do the opposite? What would be the deciding factor between me just walking in and taking what is mine versus breaking in and stealing what they won't give me? That's about the as far an extreme I can think of that doesn't involve the taking of human life. Which is what they want you to do. They want you to surrender to these monsters, and only the police we choose to send you will save you. That's what we've been living under in the sanctuary places. My state is a sanctuary state. And someone from Bridgeport robbed my neighbor. And I'm expected to stand down. Fuck you. News 12. So, to me, ethics is doing what is best for the most. Most what? During a conflict with a major corporation, I was confronted with a threat of public exposure of a photograph of a motel, Mr. and Mrs., registration and photographs of my girl and myself. Huh. Oh, so he was blackmailed. This is his personal testimony? This is Saul. This happened to Saul. Right? I guess he's a journalist or something, right? So I said, go ahead and give it to the press. I think she's beautiful, and I've never claimed to be celibate. Go ahead. That ended the threat. Okay, right. That's just ownership of you living your fucking life. You know, if you're not married... If you're not married and you haven't made a claim of celibacy, of exclusivity in sexual desire, then the only thing you've done is tell everybody that you don't approve of a dude nailing a hot chick. Yes, okay, that's fine. That's great, right? Right? This is like and that's self-defense. Good on, like Saul, that's good. That's fucking good, right? If that's a true fucking story. Or were you fucking working for Mr. Epstein? Yeah. Yeah. Release the files. Release the files, motherfucker. Who is Saul Alinski? Almost on the heels of the encounter, one of the corporation's minor executives came to see me. It turned out that he was a secret sympathizer with our side, pointing to his briefcase. Oh, to his side over this incident. About the woman? Why were you sending what cause would that be? You're protecting young men from the threat of being criticized for who they date? That was a thing in 1971? What is this actually about, sir? Is Saul gonna fucking incriminate himself? Am I gonna read Saul incriminating himself? This will be priceless. This is gonna be priceless if this is what I get to. Secret sympathizer with our side. Pointing to his briefcase, he said, "In there is plenty of proof that so-and-so, a leader of the opposition, prefers boys to girls." How did this guy procure blackmail information? Does he explain how this guy knows that? Because that makes him a creep. If there isn't a real explanation. I said, thanks, but forget it? Forget it? Now, remember he said boys and girls. He didn't say men and women. He said boys to... Not even boys in... Like, he's not into women, he's into boys. Not men, boys. That's how he's choosing to phrase it. Girls implies diminutive age. Pre-age of consent. Pre-agency. They don't have their agency yet. Especially in a society that doesn't have adulthood rights, coming of age rights that are deeply meaningful in the ritual practice of, that sets the healthy, natural individual soul's course on its journey. And you do this. You do it in your teen. Like, you're not like 18. You get this done before you're 18, for sure. But that ought to terrify you. Because by that age, you also understand the consequences. They make sure you understand the fucking consequences. Right? And a lot of child soldiers are that age. They're doing it. It's a pagan thing, actually. Just like 300. How old was Leonidas when he fucking was punching his cousins in the fucking face in the pit, and fucking then he slays the dragon, and yeah, because it was healthy for everybody. It was all fucking super healthy. To be civilized men who know how to be killers with restraint by having the sport of combat, something special about that. Something special about the professional, not the showman, but the professional doing that. Conor McGregor really fucking dropped the ball. He literally did no fucking research and just announces I'm running for president. This is like, you didn't check what you have to do before you make the announcement? That's it? You didn't double check how it worked. And you quit because you didn't announce it correctly? What? Why don't you just quit? What? No! Just fucking, like, look back into the political thing. What the fuck did you think? You think you were just gonna, like, box the prime minister out of the fucking office? Come on! It's alright. We all have to learn lessons, don't we? I mean, like, I was kind of excited about it. I don't pay enough attention. And I'll trust. If it's an Irish thing, I'm going to trust what I hear from a Christian Morris or a Thomas Sheridan, about an Irish thing emerging, right? And you know what? I did notice that I don't think Thomas even said anything about it, really. I don't think I remember him commenting on the McGregor announcement and then withdrawal. So that's interesting. So, I mean, I thought it was pretty neat. I thought at the very least he was going to have a chance to go through it and lose, and it would have been great because he would have spoken some truths if he had gone through that process and did the campaigning. He should not give up because I want to hear him campaign. Do it just to use your voice in campaigning. If you want to botch it so you lose, go ahead, but come on. Or is the real reason because they told you we're never going to give you that? And the only reason they're never going to give you that is because you're going to have to fucking sacrifice everything right now and start being a speech maker, crafting policy, surrounding yourself by cabinet people, having a campaign manager, or you're going to have to start putting all that shit together. You're going to have to start, being the guy that can organize the thing and is not just going to tell somebody in Parliament, and if you disagree with me, I'm going to punch you in the face. Right? So, you got some more work to do. You're kind of like Kanye over here. You're kind of like jumping from plot to plot because, your ADHD is a little bit too much in your personality because you got some inner work to do to transcend the childish part of the self while protecting the childish part of the self. The childish part of the self is it's like your core personality thing. Like you'll not be perceived as authentic by people, especially the women. They will see that you're not giving them your real personality. And then it's just a question of what judgment side they feel just based on that. And that's the level. Right? And a good man has been saved from a punch in the face because of somebody else's good woman, just because they're listening to the decorum among men and choosing that. And that's why they want women worshiping Jesus the way that they do, because they always want women to cheer for the bitch. That it's always the Jesus way of fucking having decorum among men. And you're not allowed to have another way. You are to live your entire life to be slaughtered. That's why I am a pagan. Because to live the way of Jesus is to live the way of the slaughtered lamb. No. And I renounce Satan and Jehovah. I hail from the higher force. There is still that creator God. You could call it God if you want to there, but I don't think that's the best word for this all-encompassing thing. And you're going to have a hard time with your mental health trying to have that relationship with it. Seek one of the gods. Just think of it like the Supreme One coming through in a personality that speaks to your soul. That's okay. That is why Odin is also Udin. Two different things. Udin effectively is the Finnish Bach saga, Wainamoinen mythology, conceptualization of God the All. And you have to be very careful the relationship you have with that mythology because of what you have to deal with in understanding the taboo parts of the story. Because without the taboo parts of the story, you also don't understand the actual way the world is all connected to everything. Okay, let's do another break. Let's see, what kind of nonsense can I play for us now? I'm always, I'm jumping around from different playlists every time I do a show because... Alright, Alright, here we go. Let's see what this is.
You may find my appearance and demeanor foolish, but it is you that plays a fool. For although I am only a student of the victim, I have many, many styles. Try my choking style. Hooah!
Every time you come in here, it's fine. I'm drained. The yesterday made nothing. Now they never mattered anyhow. Well, yeah, we like it well. We take it up, we make it swell. I fucked up so many times. The more I think, the more I sink into the dream of pain and misery. The sickness of feeling within something. Oftentimes I wonder why this lemonade, when sickness comes, I must decide what feelings go to suicidal. Well, yeah, we like it well. Make it nice, we make it swell. Take a cup of kindness, yet in hell we learn by to forget. Hell is life. You must admit this is true. But don't take it so serious. It is so soon.
Johnny's got a problem and he's out of control. Johnny's got a problem and he's out of control now. Johnny's got a problem and he's out of control. Johnny's got a problem, he's out of control. Johnny's got a problem and he's out of control. Got static on the brain, out of control now. Johnny's got a problem and he's out of control. Got static on the brain. Chipping every day, chipping deeper and deeper. His girl, she looks like a choo-choo train. I don't know what you're trying to do, John. Looks to me like you got no brain.
Got it. Alright. Thank you, Susie. Anywho. I was glad to see a Misfits on there. But anyway, let's have at it. Man, it's been interesting. Alright. So I said thanks. But forget. Now remember, I'm now questioning what the fuck this is all about. Because I can't believe he fucking is using this. He's using this as his fucking example? This guy's being shown like... Dude, if somebody showed me that, it's like, dude, you need to give that to the goddamn fucking police. Dude, if you, like, go fucking nail him to the goddamn fucking cross for a real fucking crime. I don't fight that way. Yeah, you don't fight for the children. You didn't say that looks fake. You probably didn't care whether it was real or not. You probably just assumed he was lying. We don't know. Maybe he was lying. But you fucking ran with this. You didn't, it's fine. You didn't take a look because you didn't want to use that tactic. But if somebody said that to me, well, I suppose you don't want to get shot, so maybe you wouldn't want to see that. So then again, you're actually probably... You know what? I'm sorry, Saul. I owe you an apology. That was probably very wise just because you may be not telling us of the sick game in reality. Now, because we already know this is a conspiracy. I get it. You don't want to get Epsteined. All right, I'm giving him the I don't want to get Epsteined alibi. I'm going to bestow that on Mr. Alinski. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he knew that was a trap one way or the other. And he probably knows that he can't legally put that in paper, but he can legally tell the story this way. So, everybody, let's go take a look at Saul Alinski's people. I'm focused on the book, but find this event with the corporation, figure out what corporation you think it might have been. Right, it's fairly impossible. Fairly impossible, I am sure, because this might have been something that there wasn't a press inkling of because it just never stirred, right? It never stirred outside of the corporate conversations until it came to this book, in which he said nothing that would scare the hell out of anybody. You know it's going to go down like that. So, alright, I'll give Saul that much credit. Because Saul may be contradicting himself, but maybe Saul is theoretically a good man. But many a good men believe in evil governments. So anyway. The fact that they fight that way doesn't mean I have to do it. To me, dragging a person's private life into the muck is loathsome and nauseous. He left. So far, so noble. But if I had been convinced that the only way we could win was to use it, then without any reservations I would have used it. What was my alternative? To draw myself up into righteous moral indignation, saying I would rather lose than corrupt my principles. I've said moral indignation so many times in my things I talk about. So that's funny to me. Like, I probably could have half a conversation with Saul. An exoteric one, maybe. I would rather lose than corrupt my principles and then go home with my ethical hymen intact. Anyway. Thanks for the illustration. The fact that 40,000 poor would lose their war against hopelessness and despair was just too tragic. That their condition would even be worsened by the vindictiveness of the corporation was also terrible and unfortunate, but that's life. Well, also another thing that Saul's not mentioning, one more time here, because the scales of Libra keep going back and forth. There's the prior thing with the chick. Maybe the chick was young. Not a girl, but Epstein wasn't only trafficking girls. He was trafficking, they were all girls and some women. But we're talking about like 14-year-olds and shit. There's a fucking, I continually forget the fucking word for this subsection of pedophile. It's a subsection of pedophile for adolescence. Because adolescence, you're already past the natural age of young adulthood, right? When you're supposed to have your ceremonial, adulthood ritual. If you want to end the man-child civilization, you do this. You put them through the thing that makes them aware of the step up in maturity they must have. It can't just be something that they fucking have anxiety about up to their 18th birthday and then not know what to do with themselves. And thanks, school, for not teaching me how to pay my taxes. So, obviously we shouldn't pay taxes if we're not taught how to pay them. So because we weren't taught how to pay them and they don't want to make the system easy enough for us to understand at our level, that means we inherently do not have informed consent to pay taxes. And that is a violation of all sorts of stuff that I don't feel like citing here and now because I have a book to read. But that was a good fucking weave. Anyway. That their condition would even be worsened by the vindictiveness of the corporation was also terrible and unfortunate. But that's life. After all, one has to remember means and ends. It's true that I might have trouble getting to sleep because it takes time to tuck those big angelic moral wings under the covers. To me, that would be utter immorality. He really thinks he's Lucifer. He thinks he's Lucifer. I love the way he wrote that, though. That was poetic, Saul. You win a point. You win a point. Okay, sixth rule. Okay, there's a sixth rule. Hold on. Let me see how many rules we got. Sixth rule. Okay, skipped a couple. Then there's a ninth, a 10th. Did I say 10th? Did I see a 10th? I think that was it. That must be it. This is a very long run here. Maybe he just hasn't properly structured everything, and not all of this is going over that rule. No, it was. There's the 11th fucking... Okay, never mind. We're done for the night. That's rule 11, and that's page 62. How many fucking pages did I scroll? I was gonna be here till fucking 11. I was gonna be here till fucking midnight. I'm already on fucking 5 hours of sleep. It's a fucking miracle. Alright, page 64. Page 64. That's the end of the chapter. All right. But it's 11 rules. All right. There's sixth rule, and we'll read the sixth rule, and then we're going to call it a night at after the sixth rule, because it's not been that long since the break. And unlike tonight's music selections, I am not a short and simple bar chord. There's a reason why Opeth is one of my favorite bands. It's the song structure. It works with my mind's flow state. The seventh rule of the ethics of means and ends is that generally success of failure or failure is a mighty determinant of ethics. The judgment of history leans heavily on the outcome of success or failure. It spells the difference between the traitor and the patriotic hero. There can be no such thing as a successful traitor, for if one succeeds, he becomes a founding father. Oh, that was, sixth, then it goes seventh. I didn't even see that. I was wondering where the other rules were coming from. So let me read that again, because I just jumped to the next paragraph like it was going to explain itself. The sixth rule of ethics of means and ends is that the less important end to be desired the more one can afford to engage in ethical evaluation of means. Okay, so what he's saying there is that the less important the end to be desired, ethics of means and ends, is that the less important of the end to be desired, the more one can afford to engage in ethical evaluations of means. Okay, so what's he saying here? Can engage in the less important the end to be desired, the more one can afford to engage in ethical evaluations of means. Oh, okay. What he's saying is he's talking about this is escalation stuff, right? It's just like if the end is to end a ICE facility, the means would be would be destruction. The process of destruction, you would need destructive material. You would need hammers. You would need explosives. You would need fire. You would need brute force. And you'd have to make the area too dangerous for any civil servant, whether they have a license to kill or not, in the area, right? Look, I think it's I think it's great that there is this much trouble, because we have to really think about what it all means for for members of our public to want to fall do they have a rational, real evaluation of the universe when they're destroying that ICE facility? Because it really sucks that people are just going to call you these names because you want to fucking believe that we're just doing this properly, like we've always done it. It's just being done on a mass scale in an ugly way because of sanctuary city issues. But the problem is that I'm not with the sanctuary policy. And you want to not ever acknowledge what has come with these policies and how that affects the nation's ability to sustain its ability to give you a place to grow and be free. When there's too many hostile people with terrible self-control and interpretation of basic natural law that underlies the written law, that underlies the spirit of that written law. When you are that out of line, somebody is allowed to interfere with your free will. You have gone through that threshold. And somebody else who exploits freedom is financing and instigating this, and just freedom means that you have to adjust yourself to be like, what is it about us that makes this appealing to our own? Because, our own are the ones that are so, willing to do it. Illegal aliens aren't protesting in front of ICE facilities. It's the last place they want to be. Only an American citizen, only a full-born, natural-born American citizen has the right to protest at an ICE facility. All of those people are our kids in the national sense of the word. I don't want to have them, but I want them to have themselves. And there used to be this huge population of this left people all over the place. I don't see them really that much in my part of the state, right? They're in their own Dasein. That's the rotting places. Even though I'm in a sanctuary state, I'm sure Bridgeport's one of the places where it's the sanctuary city within the sanctuary state, if you know what I mean, right? Who knows? I don't know what the ethnicity. They didn't tell me. I didn't care. I didn't ask. Doesn't matter. That's above my pay grade. I didn't vote, and I don't file taxes, and I'm at peace with the consequences of that. Because those are the means to my ends. And I have had large questions of ethical sways of what I am doing when I am making those choices and other choices. Everything I do has a large ethical sway. The scales of Libra are a master in my life. And that's okay. In fact, that's great. In fact, it's one of my fucking superpowers and what makes me so fucking good at this. And even though this is not what I want to succeed at, really, although I do want to succeed at this, but it's not my primary success. But until I figure out this fucking problem with my arms, my body will not let me be a guitar player. Because it causes too much numbness with whatever condition I have. But I'm seeing a chiropractor about it on Monday, and I'm paying almost fucking $300 for this fucking 1 hour session or so. With doctor form filled out, the whole 9 yards. And this guy was recommended to me by a holistic homeopathic researcher in my community. Gave me the business card personally. Made the reference point. So they are accustomed to working with people that are working with holistic medicine. The 7th rule of the ethics of means and ends is that generally success or failure is a mighty determinant of ethics. That generally success or failure is a mighty determinant. The judge of history leans heavily on the outcome of success or failure. It spells the difference between the traitor and the patriotic hero. There can be no such thing as a successful traitor. For if one succeeds, he becomes a founding father. Hey, what's up, Parsons? Oh, I've absolutely considered acupuncture. But my friend who told me to go to the chiropractor also knows how acupuncture works. And so she's one of my good witches. And so I listen to my good witch. If the chiropractor doesn't work, I at least am glad I have gotten a damn good chiropractic session for shits and giggles. And then I will go to acupuncture. And I will do everything until I have a body that allows me to play guitar. Because that is my fucking quest. Anyway. Anyway, so yes, that determinant. And everybody talks about how the American Revolution was this certain kind of gamble with that small percentage that was the active participant. Or even theoretically sympathetic. But they had enough of the nation's wealth to put into a colonial government that needed to be anyway for various reasons of British dysfunction in governing the colonies. And thus the various armed regulars or irregulars or whatever the fuck they were, started becoming all these Minutemen and all this shit. And we all know how that all fucking rolls. And honestly, it seems like it makes sense to me. There's a conspiracy behind it all, and everybody has gone ad nauseum on our founding conspiracy. We have quite the esoteric mythology now. Right? With all this goddamn conspiracy theory stuff spliced together, with now a bunch of conjecture to fill in the holes from the new revelations that came up during, the great works from Manly P. Hall and Jordan Maxwell and such. Now there's all this speculative mythology of what's been poured into the founding of the United States and how that has shaped the design of the mind of this nation, and how the psyche of this nation has shaped the design of the known world. The 8th rule of the ethics of means and ends is that morality of a means depends upon whether the means is being employed at a time of imminent defeat or imminent victory. Okay, so he's Lucifer, right? So he's saying at this time, you are not evil for going this far, right? Like this is the moral relativity aspect of it, right? we've now watched this. We allowed Saul Alinski's wet dream to play to its logical conclusion, and he's being proven wrong in real time. He's being proven wrong in real time. People are never going to forget the conduct of those that would call themselves the left, woke, Antifa, communist, socialist. They're never going to forget the conduct of the people that they cheered enforcing their values on the street. These people are in terrible trouble for what they have made this country, or just who they fucking are. Because they have done nothing but tell Americans to kill other Americans and don't call it a war. Because that's the only way you're going to win your election, is if there are less voters of their kind. You've now entrained a child to be, they're training child soldiers in America. These Antifa kids, they're college kids now. If you had let the state get them any fucking younger, you would have had children learning how to protest in grade school. Learning how to protest in grade school is grooming them to be child soldiers. Fuck these people. Okay, 1 second here. How long is the 8th rule to read? Okay. We're gonna read up to the 9th rule, and then we'll leave the 10th rule forward for the next show. But I'm so close I might as well read the 9. So let's read the rest of the 8. The same means employed with victory seemingly assured may be defined as immoral, whereas if it had been used in desperate circumstances to avert defeat, the question of morality would never arise. In short, ethics are determined by whether one is losing or winning. From the beginning of time, killing has always been regarded as justifiable if committed in self-defense. Yes, but for you to be the catalyst of change, you're never in self-defense. You have to fucking own it. This is what I am talking about. You are the catalyst, therefore you are the offense. You are the one invoking Mars. Let us confront the principle with the most awful ethical question of modern times. Did the United States have the right to use the atomic bomb at Hiroshima? When we dropped the atomic bomb, the United States was assured of victory. In the Pacific, Japan had suffered an unbroken succession of defeats. Now we were in Okinawa with an air base from which we could bomb the enemy around the clock. The Japanese Air Force was decimated, as was their Navy. Victory had come in Europe, and the entire European Air Force, Navy, and Army were released for use in the Pacific. Russia was moving in for a cut of the spoils. Defeat for Japan was absolute certainty. He's correct about all this, by the way, I believe. He's at least correct about that statement. It was all understood before Douglas Dietrich, became a total, whatever he was made into by the Temple of Set. Even he backs up this. Japan was toast. The empire was being given over to the British to be turned into the CCP. Anyway, defeat of Japan was absolute certainty, and the only question was how and when the coup de grace would be administered. For familiar reasons, we dropped the bomb and triggered off as well a universal debate on the morality of the use of the means for the end of the finishing the war. You see, the thing was is that like the argument was, yeah, the defeat was certain, but their fight was so total that conventional warfare would have been genocide. If we had just completely conventionally warfare, they would have. They worshipped the emperor. Right? Child soldiers. This is what all the child trauma anime is based on Japanese child soldiers being forced to fight us. We gambled because they were doing some pretty evil things to their kids, because remember, they were technically Nazis too. And they already had emperor worship baked in the cake way longer than any European had, because Rome had been baked out of our fucking, immediate nervous system a long-ass fucking time ago. The feeling of living under a traditional empire. Not like this America, and then you've got your corporate empire that goes out from the nation, but it's not really your empire, but it legally is, but it still, you're dealing with other sovereign nations, because we don't do that anymore, right? That was a different world. This was a different world. And their world got rocked. So yes, we actually technically saved them from themselves. Theoretically, it was absolute madness that Japan turned on us. There was no reason for them to turn. It was kind of dishonorable. Because way before the betrayal of the energy deal, Japan had already been pivoting away from a lot of United States stuff. And maybe they had good reason because of the conspiracies, and all that shit, right? Because, somebody was getting the conspiracies wrong, or somebody was painting the people trying to get out of the conspiracy wrong. But either way, things went ugly. But at the same time, like, when they say that we're ugly too, everything they tell us that we did that they say was as ugly as what they did is stuff that we all know, like Japanese internment camps. I'm sorry. It was cruel and undignified what we did in those Japanese internment camps because of our madness, because our moral failing. To compare that to the gulags and the concentration camps and other work camps and other anythings that any of these other fucking organizations have ever done. You get it? Defeat for Japan was absolute certainty, and the only question was how and when the coup de grace would be administered. I'm sorry, okay, I read that whole passage. Good. I submit that if the atomic bomb had been developed shortly after Pearl Harbor, when we stood defenseless, when most of our Pacific fleet was at the bottom of the sea, when the nation was fearful of invasion of the Pacific coast, when we were committed as well to the war in Europe, that then the use of the bomb at that time on Japan would have been universally heralded as a just retribution of hail, fire, and brimstone. And you know what? If Pearl Harbor wasn't a fucking deliberate setup by the Roosevelt administration on behalf of the global fucking shadows that controlled him from the Society of Cincinnati, then yeah, according to the historical narrative, abso-fucking-lutely, and would have saved way more lives than just going into the mobilization process like that. Right? And like I said, so this is a good example, right? I'm good with Saul's allegory thus far, right? Forgiving a guy who may or may not know what's really going on. As you can see, it seemed like he didn't want to know what was really going on. So good for him. He's probably maybe personally he's a fucking decent guy. He's not like some disgusting like kind of guy, right? Then the use of the bomb would have been hailed as proof that good inevitability triumphs over evil. The question of the ethics of the use of the bomb would have never arisen at that time, and the character of the present debate would have been very different. Those who would disagree with this assertion have no memory of the state of the world at the time. They are either fools or liars or both. I've made that statement, right? And that's very like, okay, good thinking. Credit where it is due. All right. Just 2 more passages and we're done for the night. As we reach our 9th, we enter the hermit of rules. The 9th rule of the ethics of means and ends is that any effective means is automatically judged by the opposition as being unethical. Fair. Yes. And be grateful for the check and balance to your ass. One of our greatest revolutionary heroes was Francis Marion of South Carolina, who became immortalized in American history as the Swamp Fox. Marion was an outright revolutionary guerrilla. He and his men operated according to the traditions and with all the tactics commonly associated with the present-day guerrillas. Cornwallis and the regular British Army found their plans and operations harried and disorganized by Marion's guerrilla tactics. Infuriated by the effectiveness of his operation and incapable of coping with them, the British denounced him as a criminal and charged that he did not engage in warfare like a gentleman or a Christian. He was subjected to an unremitting denunciation about his lack of ethics and morality for his use of guerrilla means to the ends of winning the revolution. See, that's also silly because it's killing anyway. It's terms of warfare. It's at the end of the day, it's your intent to kill. It's your intent to kill. You know, Christians being groomed to fight wars in a particular manner. It's the poorest of arguments, right? Anyway. So no, like, all this is, yes, perfectly rational. We've seen all the problems, right? We've seen all the twists, right? I think it's fair to say that, he's just a bit misinformed. He probably assumes things will go pretty peacefully anyway. About most things in your personal conduct living as a radical, I would imagine. Especially if he is instructing you on how to be wise and not overdo it and doing it at the wrong times or to fruitless endeavors, so on and so forth. But anyway. Anywho, that's good for me. Hope it's good for you. This is a good night. If I think I might be able to do another show tomorrow. I am off. I am off till like Monday, I suppose. I might even be off Monday. So I'm off for a hot minute. I'm giving myself an unpaid vacation, an extended weekend, if you will. I've earned it. I'm budgeted for it. Everything's good. So I'm going to try and get through this book, or get through most of this book by Sunday, Monday. All right. Take care.